Happy Thursday. Nice to see
Yes.
you again, Lindsay. It's our time of to
The
do
usual?
our monthly webinar.
Yes. John, can you hear me lagging a little bit? Are you hearing my voice?
Happy Thursday. Sounds great. Nice to see you again, Lindsay. It's our time to do our monthly webinar.
Yes. Hold on. John, can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, we were streaming on both things, and I think what happened was I could hear you streaming on the other thing, but at the same time as I'm streaming right now. So once again, wanted to get rolling with the stream today. Just as a reminder that everything will be recorded today. So we'll be sending out a recording to all of our people on our email list as well for the stream. But otherwise, let's get rolling.
And remember to put in your questions in the question and answer session. We'll get to it at the end.
Yes. So, all right. Thank you all for joining in on the live stream, by the way. We had some technical difficulties in the beginning with some lagging, but I think we're all caught up now. Disaster has struck, POV. We like to use a millennial term on here. You know, when that oh crap, you know, thing happens when you're at work and all of a sudden you see all your files start to disappear. Disaster has struck and you are like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? I'm joined here with Next IT today to talk about those 5 key critical steps that you need to take after you know, a cybersecurity attack, and possibly give you guys some quick tips. And then once again, like John said, we'll be taking some questions at the end, but let's get rolling. So I'll let John kind of talk about Next IT a little bit, and then we'll get into some of those recovery steps.
Good morning. Yes, as it says here, Next IT, we cover all of West Michigan and beyond from our 3 offices in Muskegon, Kalamazoo, and Traverse City. So we've got a real good footprint for businesses, I like to say, between 2,000 and 2,000 employees, you know, in West Michigan, and cover that. And sometimes we have remote offices for headquarters located in that area that, you know, are outside that mark, and we could do a lot of remote support as well. We have been in business over 20 years. And what we like to say is our technology success process is really based on that culture that Next IT has built within its organization, right? The culture of making sure that we do everything to leverage your technology, increase productivity, and reduce risk at our client locations. I've been with Next IT over 6 years and managed the Traverse City office and work with a bunch of clients, and also try looking for new people that we can help.
Yes. And can confess, we've been working with Next IT for a really long time. Their team has been amazing, you know, stopping out whenever we need help with our anything, you know, cyber related. And, you know, John has been great too at teaching me, you know, which we'll get into a little bit in the presentation, you know, potential phishing attacks that are coming at me all day, every day on my cell phone and through my email, and making sure that I'm not, you know, clicking on some suspicious links. So
yeah, disasters can happen in many different ways. We'll discover some of them today.
Yes, yes, yes. So let's get rolling with it. So, all right. Oh crap, you know, it just hit the fan. All my data is going missing. All of a sudden my computer is being taken over. Step 1, develop and enforce a computer use policy. John, I don't know if you want to get right into it.
Yeah, you know, this is becoming a lot more popular, but I still see some small businesses forgetting this when they hire on a new person, right? They go through the HR documents and this and that, but it's really come down from corporate America, right? You need an effective computer use policy when you hire on a new employee. And what we see with a lot of our clients is now we're increasing that security requirement in the computer use policy. So we're going to ask for complex and unique passwords, and we want you to change them frequently. I know passwords are kind of a thorn in people's sides. It's hard to remember. Why can't I just use the same password for every application? Well, because we're finding that they're out on the dark web. And it may not be your fault that the password is exposed, right? My favorite one is Spotify. Spotify got hit a couple of years ago. Everybody's Spotify password is now on the dark web. So if you use those same passwords, now potentially the hacker has access to your banking app, things like that. This is where multi-factor authentication comes in. not a real new term, but maybe new to some smaller businesses that aren't using, their cell phone or some other device to provide an authentication number to get into that app. So when we use multi-factor, I like to think of three things. Something I know, that's my password.
Mhm.
Something I have, which is the number sent through the multi-factor authentication app, and then a biometric login, right? So with my iPhone, it recognizes my face and I put in a password there. And so those are the three multi-factor authentications that prevent hackers from getting access to our applications and any of our critical information.
Mhm.
We want to prevent this because most common disaster today is what's called ransomware. And if you haven't had it, I'm sure you've heard of somebody that has had it and it just locks down your system and until you pay the hackers the ransom
Mhm.
in Bitcoins or something. And again, if you haven't been following, we recommend never paying, right? We can recover from backups and other ways to get your data back. If you pay the ransomware attack, then now you're a marked target and there's no guarantees they're not going to try to hit you again.
Mhm.
This is a weird one, right? The third one on here, do not use unauthorized USB drives. But I actually talked to a client that said, hey, one of my administrative people found this USB drive at a restaurant and
Huh.
decided to plug it into their computer to see what was on it.
Oh gosh.
Worst mistake ever, right? You have no idea what's on that USB drive. And in fact, we have cases where people have bought USB drives new in a package off of eBay or some discount thing, and they even have what's potentially a logo brand name on it, but hackers are actually sending these out into the world just to see if somebody would buy it and plug it in. Now they have access to your system.
Mhm.
And then
Yep.
I think I haven't looked at the latest security, but the last time I checked the statistics on the security, 70+% of hacks come in through a user, right? No matter how many locks you have on the front door, a gate to your castle, a moat around it, if the person in the house lets in the hacker, they're in, right?
Mhm.
So how do you prevent from this? We're now requiring all of our clients to go through monthly security training, and then we send out phishing tests, right? Phishing tests we've covered in a couple of different webinars in the past, but it's just the hacker sending out an email saying, hey, I think we've got a package for you. Please sign in here to make sure that we get the right drop-off information. They convince you to give them a username and password, and then you're on that screen and nothing happens. You're like, huh, what happened? That's no big deal. No, now the hackers have your username and password, and it's just a matter of time before they're in your system.
Yep.
If you fall for a phishing test, don't be embarrassed. People are doing it. Raise your hand, tell your IT guy, just change your password right away, right? Let everybody know. That's the best way to be secure. But we want you to be trained and we don't want you to fall for the phishing tests.
Yes. Yes. And the acting fast too, of being, when you're hiding it, that, oh crap, I clicked this link and now, what are people going to think of me, that think that I was, stupid for clicking that link or whatever. Don't ever think that way. Acting fast and being totally transparent with your IT team is going to be essential to catching it before before it's too late, and potentially saving a lot of critical data. So very important with that.
Yeah, the
Moving on
longer
to,
you wait, the more time the hacker has to get in.
yeah,
Because now he has a password, right? And I'm sure there's a
right.
pop-up on his workstation because they're sending out phishing tests automated. They've got the bots that are doing this, and then one will pop up and like if he happens to be sitting there, is like, hey, I got one.
Right. Right. Yep. And then obviously we moved on from the slide, but also wanted to point out too, we did talk about two-factor on our YouTube channel. It was one of our most popular webinars. We really dove into a lot of two-factor authentication information. So definitely go ahead and go to our YouTube to check that out as well, or go to our website. We have a lot of information on two-factor on that
And
as well.
we're now finding insurance companies are requiring it.
Yes.
If you have a cyber security insurance policy rider on your business insurance, most recently within, I would say, the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a lot of companies demand two-factor, multi-factor authentication, and even some encryption in different cases. So check with your insurance provider and make sure you're covered.
Cool. For sure. All right, we'll move on to step 2. I already see a question in the chat. Reminder that we'll go ahead and answer any questions at the end of the presentation. But number 2, develop an information management plan. John, you want to jump into that?
Yeah, that's a strange title. Really had a hard time identifying what this means, but what it means really, first block here, save all documents on server or company cloud storage, right? I find so many times a user is working on a file and they just save it to the desktop. It's very inefficient to try to back up everybody's desktops, right? You probably have a shared drive on your server somewhere. We call ours the H drive or the home drive. Everybody names it something differently, but that puts all your critical information on the server, and you'll should have, and I think we get into this in another slide, a good server backup program that's going to manage all that data. The second thing, use most recent version of software, right? As software evolves and the hackers find new ways to get in, those security patches are applied when you update the latest version of your software. If you've got a 2, 3, 4-year-old version of software, you may have heard what's called a 0-day breach. That's an original bug that was kind of left in the software and hasn't been patched yet. And that information is all over the dark web. They're trying to get into these older applications. You heard about Windows 7 going away 2 years ago. That's one of the big things. No longer Windows 7 security updates are being done. So that's an open hole into your system, and the hackers know as well as anybody else. The third bullet here, clean out old devices. Oh, back me up, thanks. And erase all the information on them, right? This comes primarily from HIPAA regulations, right? You don't want any personal information on those drives. And just doing a full delete of your hard drive doesn't work. It just, the hackers can recover that. So we don't want throwaway recycled information to get out into the public. A good e-recycler will destroy all the actual metal and crush it up. They run them through crushers and they just get the metal out of them is what they're looking for. Or ask your IT provider, what's the best way to erase my entire hard drive so no critical information is left on them.
Yes, for sure. And also kind of speaking on that third point, we've had experience with working with Next IT when we get, a new employee on, or we have, old tech that we need to use for, an employee so that they have, a temporary computer to use or what have you. But working with Next IT, we've made sure that, any critical information from that past employee is off of there, or that, any kind of computer we set up an employee with or tech device, that it's going to be secure and safe, especially when it's one of our possibly older devices that we're, having an employee use, an internal in the meantime. So yeah, all right. So we'll move on to step 3, improve your backup strategy. So this is kind of the proactive work as well.
Yeah, backups are so important, and they're getting more sophisticated as the hackers get more sophisticated. On one of our previous sites, I talk about, or previous webinars, I talk about an instance where a client came to us and said they had, the ransomware already on their system, but not only was it on the server, the hacker hung out long enough and was savvy enough to infect their backups. So first, are you doing your backups, right? I hate to say some small companies still are trying to get onto that regular backup schedule, and they're relying on somebody in their office to do that. And their day gets busy and they run out of the office and they forget to do it. And just that one time you miss, if it's at the bad time, that backup is not going to be recoverable. And a lot of people aren't testing their backups. They're just saying, oh yeah, the application said everything's good. But you really need to do what's called a restore verification. So go into a backup file and make sure that you can grab data, see data. Some companies even spin up full servers from a full entire bare metal backup to make sure if they had a physical disaster, fire, flood, whatever that is. And are you doing offsite backups, right? That's the first simple thing. Also move that backup to an offsite. Local backups are the most common. They're very easy and they run fast. Moving that full backup to an offsite, if you have a large server environment, may actually require what's called a seed drive. So we actually send a hard drive down there, make a copy of your on-site backup, and then mail that up to your cloud storage. And then after that, you just do incrementals, right? You send, here's the changes. And then you keep a backup chain that keeps multiple copies. So you have a couple of options in case some bad information got into the backup. These are all steps that we've progressed over the years. Increase the number of backups per day. We're doing 11 backups in your 8-hour business day, every day, in and out. And then creating full backups in the evenings and sending those backups up to the cloud, which is, the 2 in our what's next, our 3-2-1 backup program, right? So 3-2-1 backup program has a couple of different definitions out there. What I like to say is 3 different backup medias. And that's kind of a call back to the old school days, right? One, you've got your maybe network attached storage device. A NAS is what we recommend as your primary backup device locally. The second one could be tape backup. I don't know anybody really using tape backup anymore. That's a different media. The third one would be an offsite backup, or let's look at 3 backup locations. 2 copies, you always want 2 copies. And that 1 stands for 1 being offsite. Offsite is key for any building disaster, theft, things like that. You've got another copy that somebody can't physically grab and destroy or take hold of or get rid of. Then you see the last one, right? This is, as we're getting more complicated, the 3-2-1-1-0 backup program. The extra 1 in there, it's the same as above, but we're adding an extra 1, which is called a off-network backup. Some people call it an air gap backup, right? So this can be maybe a secondary NAS that's on your network, but after that backup has completed, you're disconnecting it, shutting it down, powering it off. As the hackers gain experience and sophistication, they're crawling across your network looking for all your backup devices. And if they can get to them, they'll try to infect those as well. If you've got an off-network or air-gapped backup device, that's removing it from the network. Worst case scenario, then if it's not attached to the network, you're never going to find it. You're going to have that solid backup copy. And the 0 says, check your backup software every day. Make sure there are 0 errors.
Interesting.
If there's an error in the backup, you can rerun it, right? You want to make sure that all that data is good.
Okay. I always had heard, and we'd have been educated on this, but I had never actually known what the 0 meant in it. And that is to check it every day. Cool. Awesome.
0 errors.
0 errors. Sweet. So we'll move on to the next one. And I do see a couple questions coming in. So just want to remind you guys, we're almost to the end here where we'll answer some of your questions. But if you do have any, you can just drop it down in the comments below or in the chat box. So yeah, we'll get going to step number 4, higher availability server options. So on-site and off-site, which you had kind of talked about briefly, but I think we're going to dive into that a little more.
Right. In today's world, there are becoming less expensive, what we call redundant server options. So what a redundant server is in a large corporate environment, it would be what we sometimes call a high availability, 2 identical file servers right next to each other, running the same software and syncing back and forth with each other in case there's a hardware failure, right? If a hardware failure one of those servers goes down, the other one takes over right away. A lot of companies run, huge facilities where uptime is at the utmost importance, and it's worth it for them to spend that extra money to have that secondary piece of hardware in there to keep them running. Now, with the expanse of the network, where do you put that? On-site, off-site? We've got a lot of good off-site options coming with our partners that are on the network, and because it's off-site, it gives you that next level of redundancy, meaning if something happened to my building, not just my server, I could send my users home. They could get on the network from home, connect to that offsite redundancy site, business is still running. Right. And I work with a lot of clients and they tell me, John, yeah, if I have to pay extra cost for that, that's easy. It's if I have a disaster like this, my insurance company is going to pay, to keep my business up and running, right? Continuity of business. So if I have to pay that extra cost, usually when you bring up an offsite redundant site, they're going to charge a little bit extra. Kind of like that cell phone plan that you never really used. You pay a small monthly fee, but then when you launch it, you got to pay by the minute.
Right.
But if it keeps your business running, absolutely worth it. Every client I've proposed this to said this is a great feature. And, you put it into that financial plan of what do I need to do to make sure my employees are working and happy, and all the applications I've provided,
Right.
are doing the best.
Right. I think in a couple past webinars as well, which are up on our YouTube channel, we've kind of discussed the ROI of some of these situations of, how much money could you lose if you don't have these options in place, and what does it cost your business versus what is the loss that you might experience for just, being down for a day, or even, what kind of, we kind of talked about in one webinar, we said, what would happen for your revenue if you just couldn't be open on one of the most important days of your business, and
what are you paying
pretty
your
wild.
employees to sit there?
Right.
You can't get anything done.
Right.
You can't send everybody home.
Right. Right. Yes.
So
that cost outweighing, those risks and those costs outweighing, what it takes to be protected for you and your employees is insane.
And these are real options that work. It came out of the corporate environment. Sometimes corporations would put in redundant servers just to handle multiple users. Mm-hmm. But in our, sweet spot of 2,000 to 2,000 users, servers are powerful enough today. A lot of companies are running on just one physical host with multiple virtuals in there, but they don't have that high availability second server option for that mission critical application. And these are becoming less expensive all the time and easier to implement. So make sure you talk to your IT professionals about what's available.
Perfect. All right. Last step. And this actually kind of ties into a question that somebody just asked, which we'll answer to a little bit, but step 5, hire a trusted partner. John, why NextIT over any other IT provider?
This is a task that has to be done on a daily basis, right? I see a lot of small companies say, well, Jim and our accounting department handles all the IT for us. It's a real burden to put these extra tasks on him, because he's not only has to understand the software and the hardware, he has to keep up with all the changes, right?
Right.
Hire a professional like NextIT to be your virtual IT department. We have a team of specialists. We have a guy just working on backups. So he is always looking at these backup chains for all of our clients and keeping up with the latest software and evaluating what's the next best, greatest software product out there, right? Mm-hmm. Different guy for networks, different guy on the team for servers, right? And these are all specialized education pieces that really is difficult for one person to manage, even if your company is as small as 20 users.
Right. I can honestly say too, from working with NextIT, that it feels almost like an extension of our own company. Having you guys, being able to call you guys by phone or text, feeling like you guys are always there for us, 24/7, but also getting on that basis of really getting to know you guys and, working with us consistently on different trainings. It's been pretty awesome to almost feel like you guys are our company. You're an extension of us. And
exactly. I mean, that's the whole concept of the virtual CIO or the virtual IT department. We feel, again, this is back to the culture of our technology success process that NextIT has developed internally over the last 20 years. We have a shared responsibility to protect your data. It's not your data and we're just helping you.
Right.
We're now your virtual IT department. We're sharing that responsibility of making sure your data is secure and making sure we've got a good disaster recovery plan in place if something happens. That's that last piece of, I want to do all these steps, but do I actually have a written disaster recovery plan? What happens when, and who's responsible, and what steps need to be taken place, right? And we go through that with all of our clients in detail on if it's just a, single data breach at a workstation. Did the ransomware bring down the entire server? Did you have a fire system in the building go off mistakenly and now your server room is flooded, right? And the
Right.
electronics hate that. They all die. And so now we've got to find new hardware and get that shipped in overnight and, have all those steps.
Mhm.
To expect that you're never going to have a problem is just poor planning. We
Yeah.
always say, plan for the problem. When the problem happens, we know how to solve from it. I've
Mhm.
walked into clients that had all their information up on the cloud and the cloud provider got hacked and
Oof.
they didn't have a plan for that, right?
Mhm.
Luckily with this situation, they were looking at moving their information to a local server and had that server built, and it took a lot of extra effort, but they recovered without missing a day of business and said, boy, I'm really glad I have it now. And guess what we're looking at that location, Lindsay? High
Yeah.
availability redundancy options. Absolutely.
Nice.
If you've been through
Okay.
it once, you really focus on it. If you haven't been through it, talk to your business colleagues that have, and don't be afraid of the disaster. Prepare for the disaster. And if it
Yep.
never happens, you're prepared. You go on with your business.
Yep.
Probably sleep a little better at night, right?
Yep. And I can attest too of a situation in my job where I had needed a VPN in place, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I need to have a VPN in place for this. Um, before I worked with Next IT, and I remember getting hacked through an airport, and getting in. Someone got into my phone and got into all my personal info, all my social medias, all my emails, and everything. And I was like, dang. I did need that VPN. And someone had just suggested that to me. And then I started work with Next IT, and I'm like, yep, I realize that importance now. And it always, it sucks when you become that person of having that clarity after the fact of, have that hacking happening. But definitely, John talking about being proactive and being prepared so you don't have to go through the stuff that everyone else goes through.
See,
But
we're running
yeah,
close to time here. I got a couple
yeah,
of questions that popped
yep.
in. Let me
Yes,
have
we
them.
do. So we kind of answered this. Well, you basically answered this. Maybe you can even, if you had any other points to add to this, what's another difference? What makes Next IT different than any other tech companies? I'm looking to make the switch. You kind of discussed the availability, your guys' proactiveness, but are there any other, points that would make someone, want to make the switch and, form that partnership?
Yeah, what we really talk about is going back to the culture that's been developed over the last 20 years within Next IT, right? A lot of companies do what's called break fix, right? They wait for something on your site to break and then they run out and fix it, maybe charge you by the hour. They may be monitoring your stuff, but they're not doing that proactive step that we've incorporated into our technology success process that really sets us apart in eliminating reactive tickets and making sure everything meets, the highest industry standards. We follow
Right.
the National Institute of Science and Technology industry standards. We developed off of that and have expanded to make sure our clients have the, what we say, increased productivity with reduced risk. But then in addition to that, we have monthly meetings with our clients to talk about that strategic roadmap, right? Here's where you're at today, but here's the technology we recommend for your business. And this is how it will impact your business. We're not just asking for money for new servers because we want new servers. We're looking at your business applications, how your workflow works within your organization, and suggesting tools to leverage that technology you have and recommend, technology for the future. And we've added what we call a technology alignment manager to each of our accounts. And this person is a person that comes out on a monthly basis, looks at your equipment, makes sure everything is up to our industry standards. They've got a list of, it's somewhere, I think it's growing to 260, 270 individual questions that we want to make sure that all of your workstations and servers are in alignment with. And it's a very thorough list. You don't go through it in just 1 month. They keep coming back out and they keep fine tuning that and making sure your network runs as optimally as possible.
Cool, cool. All right. And then there was another question in the mix. It looks like we have one more. It says there, we are currently backing up our server with a USB drive. Is that good enough?
I see a lot of small businesses do that, right? They plug in the USB drive, They have it on the back of the server. It's inexpensive. You get them at Best Buy. It's a place to have a backup image. But what I find a lot of times is the software says, yep, backup did every day, every day, every day. It's good, it's good, it's good. You kind of become compliant to it. You just leave that thing attached. And so now that's only one copy. It's attached to the server. I've watched clients have a ransomware virus on the server, jumps right to that USB drive. Everything else is dead. In, a cost-effective solution, I like a USB drive as that off network or air gap type backup, right? A lot of backup NASs, what we like to use is a network attached storage device. Very easy to make that local copy. You can create another copy on the USB device and take it off network. But now you're depending on human error again, right? You're actually depending on that person to take that USB drive off the network. And when it's busy on a holiday weekend, the sun starts shining, people are like, oh, I can just skip that today. I'll grab it in the morning. And Murphy's Law will tell you that's the time you get hit.
Yep. Yep. I can attest to that as well. It always seems like that always happens when you're, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll get to that another day, and then boom.
We've got other strategies. They're all automated, create multiple copies on-site, off-site. Call us, email us, chat us up. We'll come out and do a full evaluation and give you the best recommendation.
Yes.
And then take care of that for you, right? Offload the responsibility to the pros. Let us do it.
Relieve that stress, which we definitely have when we're working with Next IT. So I wanted to thank everyone for tuning into the live stream. Make sure to keep following us, on LinkedIn for consistent, tech updates, a lot of cool news about new technologies coming out, as well as, ways to keep your remote workforce and your employees safe online. But also check out our YouTube channel. We do have a lot of our other previous webinars on our YouTube channel as well, where we do dive into some of those numbers with ROI, as well as multi-factor, remote workforce protection, and some other items. So I want to thank John for joining us today. Once again, you guys can go to our website too, next-it.net. Lots of info on there, and you can get a lot of free dark web scans, consultations, if you wanted to get started. So once again, thank you, John, for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.